Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Marques Colston, thank you so much for being with us and our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited about our time together, as I told you. And as we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story. And our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we'd like to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. And then we want to talk about this amazing training that you're doing, that you're offering to the business community.
That sounds like a plan. I appreciate you having me on and really looking forward to the conversation.
We're going to have a good time. So where were you born?
I'm originally from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you grow up in Harrisburg?
Yeah, so I grew up in Harrisburg my entire childhood, all the way through high school. Had five siblings, so we had a pretty live household. And I didn't really leave Harrisburg until I went away to school. After my senior year, I went to school in New York at Hofstra University.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What was your favorite thing about growing up in Harrisburg?
Man, it was just the sports, man. And it's funny, I look at my kids now and I see the amount of time that they want to spend outside versus the time they want to spend inside.
Yeah.
Like the best part of childhood was just going out and going and playing pickup football, playing pickup basketball, just kind of making our way through the neighborhood on bikes, just being out and about and just being active.
Yeah. That was the best part of my childhood too, was being outside,
It's so much different nowadays, man.
Yeah, inside was like meals. When you were being punished, right?
Yeah.
And sleeping. That was pretty much it. The rest of it was let's go outside.
That's it.
So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
For me, it was far and away as my father.
Yeah.
He was a man that obviously you look up to your father in that father-son type of relationship.
Yeah.
He represented all the things that I wanted to do and wanted to be in my life.
Yeah.
He was a former football player himself, played in the CFL. He was a military man, man of integrity, man of principle. But I think most importantly, and the thing that rubbed off on me the most is he was a man of community. He was someone that, his reputation entered the room before he did. And it was about, living with integrity, being a man of your word, and supporting the people around you that help to build you, and just kind of seeing that growing up. I think that was probably the most impactful thing that really still drives my life to this day.
That's cool. So in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
That's a trick question. No, I've always been a math guy. I've always been a math. I kind of somehow enjoyed trigonometry and calculus a little bit. So I've always been a math guy.
I like it. And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but what was your favorite sport in high school?
Oh, football
Yeah,
by far.
By far.
Yeah, I played a lot of other sports, in the off seasons, but football was always first love.
So when did you start playing?
And I started all the way back when I was 7.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been playing, I guess looking back, man, about 25 years of my life, man.
Long time, yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah, long time. So you leave and you go to Hofstra.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you go to Hofstra? Why did you pick Hofstra?
Oh, it's easy. They're the only school that wanted me.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
I was under recruited. I literally had 2 scholarship offers coming out of high school. One to go to Hofstra, and then I had a scholarship offer coming really late from Missouri.
Okay.
And, for me, it was about, I kind of knew who I was as a player.
Yeah.
I knew that I had some development to do. I had some work to do.
Yeah.
And for me, Hofstra represented a place that really high quality football. They had some guys that got to the ultimate goal that I had, which was to go into the league, make it to the
Yeah.
league. Um, but more importantly, it gave me a chance to develop at my own pace.
Gotcha.
And I felt like going out to Missouri, who was in the Big 12 at that time, I felt like there was a chance I could get lost in the shuffle,
Yeah.
and be one of those guys that come in a huge recruiting class, and you just never really get that shot. So Hofstra represented an opportunity to go and develop and play at a high level, and that's kind of what drove the decision.
Well, and Hofstra's a good school too. I mean, they're known for their academics, right?
Absolutely. I can't say I was thinking about that at the time,
No,
but
I
yeah,
got you.
in hindsight, yes.
Well, it was a nice benefit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
So when you went to Hofstra, what did you major
So I ended up, when I stepped on campus initially, I was an electrical engineering major.
in? Okay.
And pretty quickly through my freshman year, the fall of my freshman year, I actually started to get on the field, and I was having a lot of trouble just kind of balancing the workload
Yeah.
in the classroom and the workload on the field.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot to it, man. Electrical engineering has a lot. That's a big load.
absolutely. And ultimately, I ended up changing majors and ended up in interdisciplinary studies. So it was kind of a blend between sociology and psychology.
Okay, cool. So you go to Hofstra. You're there how many years?
Four and a half.
Okay. What was your favorite thing about going to Hofstra?
I think honestly, just my teammates, just the brotherhood that we built.
Yeah.
We were, Hofstra is a school where you're getting a lot of players that have some development to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of us came in maybe a little bit undersized, maybe started playing football late, and there was just an interesting bond that we kind of formed just around being at Hofstra and having these aspirations of playing at the highest level. And some of the friendships that I made at that time, man, are still some of my best friends to this day.
Yeah.
So watching those guys, them watching me as we just kind of evolve and mature through this thing called life. Those are lifelong bonds that will be here to the end of time.
Yeah. Quick question. What was the number one thing you learned attending Hofstra?
One thing That's a great question. I think in a lot of ways, it kind of reinforced something that I already knew, which is, it's not really where you start. It's what are you willing to put in to get to where you want to go?
Yeah.
And that it kind of turned into a recurring theme in my life, and
Yeah.
it's a lesson that I really learned and kind of honed in on it at Hofstra.
Yeah. How to finish, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
That's how you finish. Okay. So you leave Hofstra
Mhm.
and you enter the draft.
Yep.
Okay. What's it like? Because there are very few people in this world that have been drafted. Okay. What's it like to be drafted?
So in my case, it was like a duality to try to balance, right? So I got drafted at the very end of the last round, the
Okay.
seventh round. So I was picked 252 out of 256, I think.
Right.
So I was kind of waiting for 2 whole days to get that call and figure out where's the place going to be that I get to start my career. And on one hand, here's where the duality kicks in.
Right.
On one hand, you're kind of listening to all the draft experts, all the analysts, and you have this idea of where you can get drafted. So it kind
Right.
of sets this expectation. So when you don't get drafted when you think you're supposed to get drafted, it becomes a really nerve-wracking feeling, just kind of waiting and waiting and waiting, feeling like you have no control over the situation.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the spectrum, there's the realization that, yeah, I might be waiting, and yeah, this might not be the ideal experience, but I'm one of maybe 300 people that get to experience this in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very unique opportunity to just go through that experience. So it's just kind of trying to balance those two, balancing the disappointment with, kind of refocusing and realizing what kind of opportunity that you have in front of you. And it's, at 22 years old, just trying to balance those two things is just a really interesting paradox.
Well, we all grow through rough times, right? We all grow through, situations that test us. And I can only imagine that had to have been a test for you. Like that had to have been one of those things where you're just you're fighting your emotions, and you're, like you said, you're trying to maintain the right type of mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just, you don't really have any control. And so you're sort of at the whim of, in the control of other people. And that's gotta be tough. So who drafts you coming out of the draft?
So I get drafted by the New Orleans Saints. So pick 252. It was a compensatory pick at the time, but I ended up seeing that 504 area code, and knew I was going to New Orleans and trying to make this thing work.
So explain to us what it was like going to New Orleans and sort of getting settled, right? And sort of, getting used to the fact that you're going to be there for a while. So you were signed to a contract. How many years was it?
It was a 3-year contract out the gate, but the caveat is always the contract. The number of years on paper is one thing,
Yeah,
but you're always one play away from not being here anymore.
yeah.
Especially like when you're a late round pick, you're a free agent type of player. It is it's one of the few jobs that has zero. If job security could have a negative number, it would exist in the NFL.
Right. So that had to have been a learning experience for you, because where I'm going with this is you're now teaching something that I feel like is absolutely vital. I told you this before we hit record.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like what you're teaching is incredibly important. And I feel like a part of that came from your experience doing this, right? I mean, it came from Hofstra, it came from how you grew up, that kind of thing. Absolutely. But also came from this, you know what I mean? Because it sounds like to me that you're never tested as much as you are when you get into something like the National Football League.
Absolutely. It's definitely all connected. And I think, that experience, what you realize really quickly is that I'm only in control of what I'm in control of.
Yeah.
And going into a situation where there's little to no expectations of you, you have to kind of move with this internal standard that sets your own tone.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that experience taught me really quickly was, I'm a 7th round pick. I'm in here competing with veterans that have been Pro Bowlers, that have been all pros. I'm competing with other guys that have been drafted earlier than me.
Yeah.
So the thing that I have to do is I've got to make my mark, and I've got to make my mark in a way that gives me the best opportunity to put myself in position to accomplish the goals that I set out to accomplish. I can't do that by, being or trying to be someone else. I can't be that by, trying to run my routes or trying to figure out how to play like somebody else. I've got to take this one opportunity, this one shot that I have,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got to take all the internal skills that I have, all the experience that I have, and I've got to put it together and package it up in a way that gives me the best opportunity to make the most of, this thing in front of me.
And I really feel like there's a lot of wisdom that comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
You with me? Because even in business, okay, business is competitive, business is rough and tumble, it's all those things, but it's not what you experience. Okay. And I feel like there's a lot, in fact, I know there's a ton that you learned through your life that's going into this training that you're doing. So let's go back. So how long did you play for the Saints?
So I was fortunate enough to play 10 years.
Yeah.
In a sport where the average career is, a little less than 3 years.
Yeah.
I was able to triple that and play 10 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you leave the New Orleans Saints, you leave football, right?
Mm-hmm.
What made you What was it that inspired you to come up with the training that you're doing?
So it was really a lot of it's rooted in football.
Hmm.
Hence the creating separation, that mantra.
Yeah.
But even I think what really drove it home for me, and it's kind of a spot that I landed on after a bunch of different other stops. So once I left football, I kind of got got my hands dirty in a bunch of different areas, just really, in a lot of ways exploring what I wanted to do next.
Right.
You know, delved into angel investing for a while, entrepreneurship, and ended up kind of becoming an advisor consultant to startup founders. And the thing that really connected the dots for me in that stage was when I was able to map the experience of an athlete to the experience that an entrepreneur is going through,
Yeah.
especially, that startup entrepreneur that has this vision for a business, has, this internal drive to create this new thing or this new spin on this new thing. Um, and realizing the odds that they were up against, it was a journey that I was living at the time and didn't know I was living it through playing professional sports.
Right.
And when I was able to connect the dots there, it made that transition really seamless in that I was able to transfer the mindset and the processes that made me a really good athlete. I was able to take those processes and kind of point them in a new direction. And once I was able to connect those dots, it just sent me down this path of how much can I learn, how much can I explore, where are the different areas, of business that I can kind of get involved in, learn about, try to shorten the learning curve a little bit. So I spent a good 7 or 8 years just kind of bouncing around in different places, doing as much as I could, getting as much hands-on experience as I could. And through that journey, combined with the football journey, is kind of what led to this separation playbook concept, which is literally this synthesis of all of my life experiences, all of my business experiences, all of the processes that kind of have led me and have helped me position myself, throughout the years. It's kind of the synthesis of all of those things just kind of dropped into one platform.
Gotcha. So when you left the Saints and you were in business doing various things for those 7, 8 years, what was the number one thing you learned, first of all, from playing for the Saints for 10 years? And then what was the number one thing that you learned in those 7 or 8 years?
Man, it's so many things, man.
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to your training. You know what I mean? Like it's comprehensive, and that's why I want to kind of simplify it a little bit, only
Yeah.
because there's a lot to what you're teaching.
Yeah, I would say the number one thing that I learned is that there is no one way.
Yeah,
There is no one way, right? We all kind of enter into business with these defaults.
yeah,
Uh, there's the things that we think we can accomplish. There's things that internally we think they're beyond our scope, but we'll never get there.
right.
So there's kind of the internal battle that you're always fighting of, what am I capable of? And, how far out of my comfort zone do I have to venture to figure that out?
Right.
So that's one side of it. But then on the other side of it, it's the defaults in what people expect of you, what people, you know, right, wrong, and different, people are going to perceive you in a certain way. And it's
Yeah,
going to be based on factors that you really can't control. It might be your background, it might be your upbringing, might be the way that you look, might be, in my case, it was a lot of those things. Plus, okay, you're an athlete. Um, so there's kind of this built-in perception that people have of you.
yeah,
And, the reality becomes there's ways to reframe that and ways to reposition that. um, it just takes intentionality and it takes processes to do
yeah,
it. And that's the thing that literally defined my position as a wide receiver. This concept of creating separation. It's the end goal is to get to a place where the defense isn't, so you can catch the ball and make a play.
right.
But the way that you do that is completely dependent upon your skill set, your body type, your awareness of the playbook, your awareness of the defense. And when I started to kind of piece all of those things together and just kind of looking in the mirror and saying, all right, I'm 6'4", 230. The way that I get open is going to be a lot different than this slot guy over here that's, 5'9", 180, right?
Yeah.
Working with different skill sets, different tool sets. How can I leverage what's unique about me to get to the same end result as that person? And, when I started to figure out how transferable that was in the business, how transferable that was into building a career path, how transferable that was into positioning your business as an entrepreneur, it was kind of a light bulb moment that this isn't just sports specific. This is a universal concept.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, there's another factor here that I know, and I know you're the living embodiment of, but we haven't talked about it. And it's desire. Because here's the thing, the reason you lasted 10 years in the NFL and the reason why you did as well as you did at Hofstra to even get drafted, okay? And this has been your story your whole life, it appears. You've just wanted it worse than everybody else. That desire, no, I'm not joking. I mean, you're smiling, right? I'm telling you the truth. That desire, that fire in you burns pretty hot. Okay. And it has your entire life, right? You're a 7th round draft pick. You've got to get noticed because you're in a sea of people and they're cut day's coming, right? Yeah, you're drafted, but there's no guarantees, like you said.
Yeah.
You've got to find something inside of you. Okay. And I'm believing that you found that in you as you've gone through your life, and it's helped you to propel and excel in everything that you've done. And when you got into business after the NFL, I believe you identified that one of the ways you separate yourself is you want it worse than everybody else, right? You're willing to work those extra hours. You're willing to do the things that it takes. You're willing to learn the things that aren't comfortable. You're willing to do the things that are not comfortable, right? The thing that I love the most about your separation playbook is it's really about differentiation. And let's be honest, there's a million podcasters out there, okay? There's a million business people out there, several million, right? Mm-hmm. How do you separate yourself and differentiate yourself from the crowd?
That's, in so many ways, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah. And that's what you're answering. That's why I think this is so unbelievably impactful and needed, because the business community doesn't quite grasp, and students don't either, right? And even student athletes, okay, they don't quite grasp that you really have to do certain things to stand out.
Yep.
Okay. And one of the things that we found in the 150 plus interviews that we've done for this podcast and the ones that I did, we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.